Hi everybody, as you see on the board, we're going to be building bee houses today, which are such important refuges for our local pollinator native bees to raise their babies. I'm going to turn it over to our two wonderful Wild Ones representatives, Miss Marlene Smith and Miss Esther Bonney, in just 1 second. I appreciate all you SkillsUSA members who have joined us today to help make extra bee houses. You're about to learn in this presentation why that's so good for all of our gardens, our ecosystems, and our food system. Miss Marlene starting. All right, you guys clap her in.
So thank you for having us back today. We've worked with many of you before. For the new ones here in the group, welcome. Today we're going to build habitat for native bees. I'm with Wild Ones Chesapeake Bay, and our vision is native plants and natural landscapes in every community. And I'm here with...
Hi, I'm Esther. I've been here a few times talking about biodiversity, native species, pollinators, but I'm the founder and director of Nurture Natives.
All right, so today's program is not just presented from Wild Ones Chesapeake Bay and Nurture Natives, but it's also a cooperative effort with Wild Ones National and Crown Bees. They have a grant that allowed them to provide the bee houses that we'll build today that will eventually go out in your community gardens. And today we're going to talk about pollinators and pollination. It may be a review for some of you, but maybe new for some. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference in honeybees and solitary bees, see what you know. Talk about how many solitary bees species there are. More specifically, the spring mason bee, which will use these bee houses that we create. And then we'll go into building the bee house.
But the basic definition of a pollinator is just a living organism, such as an insect, bird, bat, or other animal that transfers pollen to plants and so allows fertilization. So they're basically in charge of plant reproduction. And there are a ton of different kinds of pollinators. I'm sure when we say pollinator, maybe the first thing you guys think of is bees.
The social honeybees, there's one female queen and all of her sisters are worker bees who collect the pollen and nectar and build the nest.
Sisters.
And like I said, they are territorial and they will sting to defend the hive and protect the honey. Solitary bees, every female is a queen and lays her own eggs. She's also a worker who collects her own pollen and nectar for her nest and for her babies. She lives on her own, and they're gentle bees that rarely sting. 70% of solitary bees live in the ground, while 30% nest in cavities. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the spring mason bee, the Osmia species. Those are the bees that will inhabit the bee houses that we build. The mason bees spend most of their lives snuggled inside their nesting holes or inside a tube. They emerge in the spring when daytime temperatures are typically above 55 degrees. They're only active in the garden for 4 to 6 weeks, during which time they mate and lay eggs. That's their whole purpose. The eggs that are laid this year in the bee houses will not emerge until next year. And in the nesting holes, the bees undergo a variety of transformations or developmental stages. They eat, they grow, they spin cocoons and develop into the adults. And eventually they'll hibernate as fully formed adults over the winter, waiting for the right temperature in the spring to emerge. Okay, so the reason we're here today to build bee houses is because wild pollinators are at risk. And one of the most important things we can do is to plant native plants and flowering plants. Y'all were great. Thank you all for participating. It made it a lot of fun.
Clap them out, guys.
Can we see what, oh, yeah, let's see. Okay, so what we're going to do to build these bee houses, we're going to pass out the kits, pass out the hammers. We're going to open the kits, put them on the tables so that you make sure you have all the parts. We're going to work in groups of 2. Do you have any questions on what we went over so far before we start building the bee houses?
and done.
She's moving on. She's moving on.
Why are you asking us?